Hey YouTube, what's up? This is Ben from ShouldIGetIt.com. Welcome to episode 3 of Shooting Cars. In this episode, I'm going to be teaching you how to get started shooting in manual mode and also how to make a preset for awesome looking skies in Lightroom. Now, if you already know how to use your camera in manual mode, go ahead and skip ahead to the Lightroom part. Hopefully you learned something there, but for the rest of you, I'm going to explain why you should be shooting in manual and also how to get started doing that. And you don't even need a car to practice on this week. Manual is super easy to get started with, and since the Miata's in the shop, unfortunately, we're going to be shooting the PT Cruiser Monster today. If it survived, I hope it did. So there are a couple of reasons that you need to know how to use your camera in manual mode. One, you need to be able to have consistent photos so that you can create a style and really be in control of your images instead of relying on the camera to make all the decisions for you, because sometimes you and the camera might not agree on what looks good and you're going to want a little bit of a different style, and knowing how to control your camera in manual is super important for that. Two, for the upcoming tutorial where I'm going to show you how to clone a car, you are going to need to keep your settings the exact same for both shots to make it work. So knowing how to go from automatic to manual is super important. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to basically cheat your way into manual mode, and it's going to be stupid easy for you to follow along. And it's super important to know how to control manual for an upcoming tutorial that I have coming out as part of this series, which is going to be rolling shots and rolling shots at night. So you can see I went out this weekend with Guy with a camera 415 and we shot SFGTR in San Francisco at night. Photos came out awesome, and you're going to need to know how to replicate the settings that I will tell you what settings you need to go to, but you're going to need to know how to actually control your camera to do that. So let's get started, and I'm going to show you the easiest way to do this. This can be super simple. So we're going to start on our mode of, no flash mode. That's what we've been shooting on for the last 2 episodes. We're going to take a picture of whatever our subject is. In this case, I'm shooting the PT Cruiser Monster. We're going to focus, take a shot, and we can see that we got the numbers in our reading right here of 1/60th and f4. 1/60th is our shutter speed, f4 is the aperture. Now you'll see these numbers also show up on this display up here if you have a display on your camera. So you can see left is shutter speed and right is aperture. And what happens is as you change what you're pointing your camera at, this number will change. So right now I'm pointing at the sky. I take a photo that's 1/250th f8. You can see that, that's properly exposed for the sky. You can see the clouds, you can see the trees, that all works out. So I'm going to hop into manual mode and copy the settings that I see in automatic. So basically now you know what these numbers are. They are kind of like a seesaw, so you should know that one affects the other, but they don't both have to change, right? Sometimes you're on a seesaw with your friend, but you just want to hang out at the bottom and text back with other people, and you just let your other friend hang out. So it's totally up to you how you are going to do your settings, but the easiest way to get started is to copy what the camera thinks is right. So again, no flash mode, we're pointing at the PT Cruiser. We took that photo. And the numbers, when we review, you can hit this info button right here, usually, or press down on your D-pad, and the numbers will show up, 1/60th f4. We're going to go to manual. We're going to spin this to 1/60th f4, okay? And if I take this picture, it's going to give me the same shot. Now you can see if I take a picture of the sky with those same settings, it is going to be way too bright, right? It is just blown out white, and that doesn't work. But when I take a picture of the PT Cruiser, it's perfect. Now, let's say I wanted this image to be a little bit darker, right? The paint is a little bit bright. I have 2 options. I can go down in the aperture, so make this number bigger, or I can go up in the shutter speed, so make this instead of 60, like 1/100th, or 200 or 300 or whatever. So let's stay at 4.5, and I'm going to take the same picture at 200. So that's 1/200th of a second that the shutter is open. You can see the paint looks much better. It looks freaking terrible, but it looks much better with this, with these settings, because now you can actually see it. It's not too bright and overexposed. So to get started in manual mode, basically go to automatic, see what settings the camera gives you for the subject you're going to shoot, then go into manual and take photos and change your shutter speed and change your aperture and see what happens to the image. If for whatever reason your camera's not charged and you want to try this right now, there's an app on the iPhone that I actually use sometimes to get a proper reading. And you can't change the aperture, but you can change shutter speed. It's called manual. It's actually what I shoot most of my Instagram photos with, but you can see right here, here's the overall exposure. You can see it's exposed for the sky, but it's at 1/3500th of a second. If I go this way, you'll see that the sky gets way too bright, but now I can see more on the grass at 1/320th of a second. If I go to like 1/40th, it's just way too bright everywhere. Hopefully you can see that. So 1/40th, and then we'll go, let's say like 1, keep scrolling, 1/320th, and then the sky is way too white here, so I'm going to hold it and go up to, like 2000, and right there, 1/2000th, you can see the blue in the sky and the whites. So you can practice on basically anything. You don't have to shoot a card to get comfortable with manual mode, and just basically point your camera at something, go into manual, and start playing with your settings. If you have questions that you can't really figure out on your own or through the comments, send me a DM on Instagram at a car photographer. But right now, what I'm going to do is show you in Lightroom how to create a gradient filter preset for the skies, like I told you I would do last week. And next week, we are going to talk about weather, lighting, and location. So lighting, we're going to talk natural light for the next few episodes, but this is actually like the perfect light right now. You can see everything's in the shade. We're perfectly even light. The light on the car looks fantastic, just like last week's episode. Clouds are your friend, so is sunset and sunrise. So we'll talk about that in a later episode, but for now, let's go into Lightroom and learn another trick. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. All right, guys, so now we're in Lightroom, and as you can see, in about 2 seconds, I just changed the look of this image by altering the sky with what's called a graduated filter. So right now I'm going to show you how to make a preset like this, save it, and use it on various images. Keep in mind, if you're shooting in manual mode, it's going to be a lot easier to apply because your exposures are going to be relatively the same. But let me show you a couple of examples of how this can be used. So here's a photo of my Mini. You can see I brought the skies down in here, and it adds a little bit of detail that it's missing. You can see that this rear was lit up a little bit as well. This is using a brush, and we learned about brushes last week on episode 2. Here's another image where there were only a couple of clouds in the sky. So what I did is I went a little bit higher key. You can see this is more of a major edit, desaturating, brightening the rim, stuff like that. But I just changed it up a little bit. And same thing here, same car, but I want to show you an example that this doesn't just alter the sky, this can change the background as well pretty dramatically. So you can see how it changes right here. And on night shots, like if you're light painting and you want to actually brighten the background, get some detail back, you can use this to brighten the sky instead of darken it. So lots of different ways to use it. Here what I did, there were a couple of gray clouds, but I didn't like them. I actually made them brighter and used dehaze negatively to get rid of them, so it just kind of washes up, and you could put some cool text up here or make a thumbnail or whatever you want. It's just a cleaner shot like that. Then on this image, I brought back the sky by using the preset I'm about to teach you how to make right now, and then I had a little bit of detail added to the ground by using another one. So we are going to take a look at this Ferrari 488 image. Composition wise, not the best, but I want to show you how these filters are made and how to use them as well. So what we're going to do is hit M on our keyboard for the graduated filters. Then we're going to go to exposure. That's where we're going to start, and we're going to select the sky area of this image. So we're going to pull down right here, and you can see that since the exposure is up, this part's getting brighter. Let's bring it down to show you a good example. So I'm just showing you what this does. Basically, it goes really dark from the top, and then a little bit less dark, and then a little, and then at this line it doesn't do anything right here. When you look at the wheel, it doesn't do anything until I really bring it down. So it nicely provides a gradient from top to bottom. So let's say we want the sky right here, and what we're going to do first is bring down the exposure. So I like it right around -1 to 1.5, so we'll keep it right there. Then contrast basically changes how white the whites are and how black the blacks are. So usually you want to go a little bit higher contrast depending on your style. And then we're going to play with clarity, dehaze, and saturation. Saturation is the easiest one. You can see as we go right, the blues become more blue, the yellows become more yellow. It just makes colors more saturated. So usually I like to do around +20 to 30 on this. Then dehaze changes the contrast and the saturation and the sharpness. So you can see this is going to be overkill right here. Dehaze, that just looks totally unnatural. But then if we wanted to blur out the sky and make it kind of fade to white, we can do this, and you can see now it went from a little bit of clouds to just being a little bit more holy looking. And you can do this to create flares and random things like that, but I usually like this around 15 to 25. And then clarity, again, is just going to be like contrast between the blacks and whites and a little bit of sharpness. So as you can see, this totally changed the image right here. And then we can drag up and down to select how much of the image we want that to apply to. I don't want it to reach the people on this left side here, so I'm going to leave it right about there. Now, how do we save this so we can use it on more images? We're going to hit this custom effect right here, the drop down, and we're going to save current settings as a new preset. So I'll call this example filter, okay? So now we have that saved, and we can use it on other images. Really quickly, I want to show you how to use filters like this for the ground as well. So we're going to use the same filter, this example filter, and we're going to pull from the bottom up. You're going to see that the ground's going to get darker and more textured, but it's way too dark, I'd say. So we're going to change the exposure right here, bring it up a little bit, right around there, actually bringing it brightness up, and you can see now the ground has a lot more texture in it, a little bit more color and detail. And what we can do is we can actually take the colors out, and you can see the ground now becomes black and white or really yellow. So you can play with these and create a really different looking image. So as you can see, with just those filters, we didn't touch the Ferrari at all, didn't touch the paint, didn't touch colors, contrast, anything in the main image. We just added some filters. You can see that the car and the image just pops. It's a lot more vivid in this after version right here because we added a little bit of detail to the ground, took out some of this yellow, so now it's just a cleaner gray ground, and then we added a little bit of detail in the sky as well to have some depth. So that's what it looks like right now, and this is pretty easy to do. So I hope you learned from this that you can play with these filters to do a lot of various things. And if you have an image, let's say where there's a person or something in it and you can't do a perfect diagonal line, you can use the brushes that we learned about last week to get a little bit of detail back in the sky like I did in this image. So I hope you guys learned something from this tutorial. If you did, leave a comment and a like down below. I really appreciate it. Next week, we're going to have another episode at 9 a.m. on Thursday Pacific Standard Time. Really hope you enjoyed. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram at @acarphotographer. That's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you next week. Have a good one. Go out and shoot some cars. Peace.